Welcome back to my Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling Ash. We see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where we'll be relaxing as per usual. And as you can tell from the title, we'll be talking about the episode, not the episode, of the video game Tunic, which I have finished the series of. Finished recording the series for yesterday, I think. If you're new to this is just my video diary thing. I talk about random topics. Today's topic is Tunic. I'm not recreating anything from Tunic in there, and I will warn you before I get into any spoilers, I suppose, about Tunic itself, which will probably be quite early on. I think of this. It's quite hard to talk about it conceptually without going into spoilers, I think, for Tunic, but. Anyway, hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 6:04 p.m. on Monday, October 16th, 2023. So how can I summarize Tunic? I think Tunic is a very creative game. To be honest, it's probably one of my favorite mechanical games from a non-mechanical standpoint, I suppose, is what I mean by it. I think it's not I think I prefer Hollow Knight's like mechanics better in like, when I mean mechanics, I mean like combat mechanics, or like with a feel of like platforming and things like that. I think I prefer it a little bit better in Hollow Knight and things like Celeste. But Tunic, I think, has such a nice dimension of originality in it, which I've not seen before. An originality in it which sort of like transcends its experience to being more than just like a mechanical based, like slashy based game, especially because these are increasingly common. I suppose like in the indie market, you know, there's certainly no like shortage of these sort of like hack and slashy Metroidvania-esque games. Tunic, I think, does pretty well to differentiate itself. So let's start with the small things, you know. Music, I think, on the whole, is pretty good. I don't think it was anything which I was just like, whoa, mind-blowing or anything like that. But I think it does what it needs to do particularly well. And its art style is, of course, very cute with like the sort of kind of like you're playing with like little model figurines. Certainly invokes a very retro feel to it, but with a sort of polygonal style. But of course, glammed up a bit more for modern viewership. But those are minor things. You don't really play Tunic for necessarily, or I mean, you might play Tunic for its aesthetic style or its music, which is fair enough. They are both good. They're both solid, like, you know, A's in their category or whatever, but they're not like the key selling point of Tunic. So I suppose now we'll be getting into mild spoilers, if anything. So Tunic as a whole, if you haven't played it yourself, is like a Metroid sort of Vania game. You go around exploring, but it's a game where it takes exploring up to like a whole different dimension. Because a lot of these Metroidvanias, I think, tend to, well, I say a lot of these Metroidvanias as if I'm very well versed in them. I'm not really that well versed in Metroidvanias, to be perfectly honest. It's just my own experience in playing. And I mean, of course, everything I say is going to be subjectively my opinion. It's just like, I'm just going to talk about it, right? What else? I can't talk from someone else's opinion. I don't have someone else's opinion. I think Tunic basically takes the exploration level up, but rather than just being exploration based off a game, like how to navigate things, where are you, where is this, finding out new abilities or that sort of thing, it takes it up to like a knowledge level. Well, it puts like an interesting sort of puzzle solving dimension onto the actual game itself. As you go around collecting these pieces of paper from a made up, instructional booklet that comes with a video game. One, it's very, very nostalgic. I would say maybe not quite as nostalgic for me, because I think it's a little. I do remember instructional booklets of things, of course, and things in my games. But they started very much being phased out as I got into like my teen years and that sort of thing. I never saw like these super retro ones that you would see on Nintendo 64, the NES, etc., etc. But it does evoke that sort of imagery, I suppose. I mean, even more so with like the VCR effects when you pause the game or open up the instructional booklet. But really, what Tunic does incredibly well is an interesting dimension on the base game it has of itself. As a base game, it's basically a Metroidvania. You go around exploring, you get new abilities, and you have freeform and discoveries, etc., etc. But the interesting sort of twist that they add to it is how many sort of secrets and things that they hide in Tunic. Things they hide, by the way, in plain sight, but you would never really think about noticing, because they give you an instructional booklet. It's written in a made-up language, which I've been calling Runic. I don't actually know if it's called Runic. But I've been calling it Runic, and it means that basically the only way you can decipher things is via context of images and a few words that they sparingly give you. And I think that's super, super cool, because they drip feed the pages in just the right amount to give you like sort of these light bulb moments of being like, whoa, this is kind of cool. Whoa, I didn't know I could do that. And it allows you basically to get these sort of like puzzle solving moments where you're just like, whoa, this is something crazy. There's basically, the strongest way I can distill down Tunic is there's always a sense of mystery, and there's always the sense of there's something else I haven't uncovered about this yet, and it rewards you by always having something further for you to discover. You know, the mysteries and the solutions to these puzzles, I suppose, never stop. They just keep going. It's basically discovery on discovery on discovery on discovery, and that's a really cool experience, and it really tickles my fancy personally, because if you don't know, I'm very much someone, my favorite style genre of games is very much puzzle games and story-based games. Mechanical-based games are sort of just me, not necessarily stepping out of my comfort zone, but expanding my own horizons a bit, where I try some other different things. You know, would I have played Hollow Knight and Celeste? Maybe I would have eventually, but they're not necessarily like high on my priority list. And Tunic is just like another one of those as well, because, you know, they're not story games, they're not puzzle games and that sort of thing. But Tunic is very interesting on how it combines these puzzly elements together with it, which is why I think I ended up like really enjoying it for like a good portion of it. Okay, but I'm gonna say now, all spoilers are off from Tunic. Like, and anything in the game could be spoiled from here on out. So if you don't want to be spoiled in Tunic, if it's a game you think you might play, I would recommend buying it and, you know, playing it before, you know, you come back to this review, because I'm going to spoil fundamental things in this game from here on out, and you have been warned. What I think was interesting is that Tunic was like, it didn't like super grab me from the beginning. I was like, okay, it's like a Metroidvania, like hack and slash, or like Legend of Zelda thing. Excuse me. Even with first few instructional booklets, I was like, okay, this is like, it's intriguing, but it's not like grabbing. And then I don't know at what point I feel like it super like clicked. I think it must have been whenever I first found the first hidden thing, which was directly in front of me. Because Tunic has this isometric perspective, which it does very well to hide things just on plain sight, like shortcuts backwards, which have been open the entire time. You know, the secret passageways, which allow you to go to different areas, and you're just like, whoa, this is crazy. So that's when it started hooking me in again, and I was like, ooh, look at all these secret discoveries there are to be making. There's something going on more of this game. And then as you get more of instructional booklet, as you start learning more things, it becomes more and more engaging. And I feel like I basically coasted on that. This is a reasonably interesting game for a while, you know? Tunic was a bit of a slow burn for me before it like completely reeled me in. And then I think the moment Tunic flipped from this is a great game to this is an amazingly clever game, is 100%, big spoilers, The Golden Path. The Golden Path is one of, I'm so sad it didn't happen in the actual recordings of the game itself, but that is one of the biggest sort of like boom light bulb moments. It's actually bigger than a lot of light bulb moments I've had in some of the puzzle games I played, but it's a crazy big light bulb moment, because it basically put together all the threads that I was thinking about before. And the best thing about Tunic is, once you get that light bulb moment, once you get that eureka, you're like, oh, this is what this must be referring to. You can look back and you see how all the hints were there for you to pick up from straight from the beginning of the game, but you just didn't understand them in context yet. And I think the discovery of a golden path was mind-blowing. It basically sent Tunic up to a whole new level of a game. Like the main game, like up to you defeating the air and, you know, collecting the things, is like, it's nice. It's a solid base experience, but it really upgrades once you get like to the post game, quote quote, like going towards the second ending and discovering the secrets. It goes crazy. And for my own personal taste, I was like, this is insane. I love this. This is fantastic. This is basically it seamlessly, I suppose, folds together the concepts of mechanical, like execution based games that these hack and slash games and indie games tend to have, with the puzzle solving strategy that you need to be able to figure things out. I mean, it seems like so obvious to say in retrospect, but it feels like so perfectly intertwined with Metroidvanias. Metroidvanias are very much about the sense of discovery. You know, why not incorporate these much more in-depth puzzle elements as well, you know? So the Golden Path is crazy. Discovering fairies, it was like, wow, that's amazing. I basically just cannot get over the Golden Path discovery, because that was crazy. And then it just keeps going. It keeps rewarding you for like looking further and further into these like secrets. Like, you translate the language. Wow, now you can discover all these other things. So someone suggested during a Tunic playthrough to have a video where you I read through the translated manual. I apologize. I don't think it's necessarily my best video because I think, I recorded a lot of videos that day because I was trying to build up a backlog again. So I think I was quite tired towards the end of it. But it was interesting to read through it nonetheless and see how, it basically just feels like a normal instructional booklet, which is crazy to say. Yeah, but what else? But there's so many secrets upon secrets that have been like laying out in front of you. Like, I think it like particularly tickles my fancy because there's a lot of things where while I was playing, the first time I saw them, I just chalked it up to being like, oh, maybe this is just like indie game, like a little bit of strangeness, or they're like, it's just a little bit quirky rather than anything. Like, the one that sticks in my mind is a wind chimes one. A wind chime secret, where a lot of the times when I passed the wind chimes, I thought it was like, oh, it's a very cute thing that you can hear the wind chimes only in this area, I wonder if that like plays into a part of anything. And then later on, turns out the wind chimes are a secret, and it's actually a secret code which you need to input. And I was just like, that's crazy. It's all these small things where I'm just like, that's a little bit strange when I look at it, and then it turns out later, oh, I connect the dots, that's actually part of a puzzle. It's intentionally a little bit strange to like get you to discover it. Another one actually I think about as well is one of the early instructional booklet pages where it points out you and other things. I talk about it in the actual series, I can't remember. Is like it gives this like squiggly yellow line, which obviously is part of a golden path, as you later find out. But I remember looking at it the first time. I don't think I said it initially in the video, but I was like, that's a really weird like arrow pointing towards me. Like, I don't know why they made it so squiggly for no apparent reason, but there is a apparent reason. I guess it's basically a very clever game, which I can describe as it earned my respect. But basically, sometimes you play a game, there's like some weird quirks of it. You're like, oh, they probably didn't mean for it to be like that, or you write it off or whatever. This game, basically, I came in it with that attitude, and then it basically said, no, you're gonna respect me, and you're gonna understand that every single thing that you think is a mistake is an actual intentionally placed thing for a clue, for a puzzle, for a secret that you haven't discovered yet. And it made me, it's like humbling in a way. It made me respect it and be like, hey, initially I thought that these might have just been mistakes or oversights on your end, or just like strange game choices and game design choices. But eventually it was like, okay, yeah, I need to respect you. The developers put this in intentionally to be like, hey, this is a puzzle, and it's gonna, you're gonna have that light bulb moment later on when you finally figure it out. And it does it beautifully. It's what can I say? It's like one of the most interesting experiences I think I've ever had playing a game. And I don't mean interesting in a UK term where you just use it to mean like bad or whatever. I mean interesting as in genuinely like engaging, and it's very creative. I would say mechanically, it's okay. Like the combat, I would say is not like its strongest point. I think it gets like big upgrades when you get the hero's laurel. Like, I understand it. Like, I don't think Souls-like games are exactly for me. I've not, to be fair, I've not actually played a Souls-like game, so maybe they are. But it felt like it's a thing where I can understand, I can appreciate that you had to be careful with your choices and that sort of thing. You had to make sure you dodge at the right time. Don't be attacking because you can't dodge while attacking. You got to make these sensible choices while during the combat. But I guess I just don't find that as engaging. Maybe it's like I prefer the dopamine hit of these like rapid fire slashings. Tricksy mechanical things like invincibility framing through attacks, etc., like playing risky and having it being like short and sweet and snappy, while Tunic's ones definitely feel a bit more longer, but that's very much a personal preference thing. I think if you like Souls-like games, you'll probably love the combat style of Tunic. Well, for me, I was just like, it's fine. I don't think I was ever particularly enthralled with it until I got the hero's laurel, and then I was like, yeah, this is actually like being able to zip around has increased the fun for me personally for Tunic. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just really like snappy combat in that sense, which Tunic is pretty snappy, but it's like, if it's a mechanical based game, like the things I'm comparing it to are like, Hollow Knight. That's incredibly snappy, probably one of the snappiest games, etc. I'm like comparing it to like fighting games, I suppose, which is not necessarily a fair comparison, because that's not necessarily like, it's not going for that. It's not going for those hyper twitch reflex necessarily sort of gameplay things. It's going for a much more methodical style of combat, where it's like, you got to make sure you make the right decision, because if you don't make a right decision, you're going to get punished for it, of these like Souls-like games. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just increasingly finding as I'm playing out, I was like, it doesn't draw me in as much as I think it draws in the average person, which definitely brings into question whether I would or should ever play a Souls-like game, because I'm not sure if I would enjoy it all that much. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I'm still willing to try things, of course. But yeah, Tunic's combat is fine, I would say. It's not a standout point. Its standout point is, for me, absolutely, is the puzzle elements and the sense of discovery intertwined within Tunic itself. What other criticisms would I have with Tunic? I think in the game, there should be something that once you've proven yourself, like you got like 100% or whatever in the game, I'm surprised there's nothing which like translates the language for you or makes things convenient. Basically, like when you prove yourself in a game, I like it when the game says, okay, you've proved yourself, you've passed our test of that sort of things. You can now optionally sort of not trivialize the element, but you can make it easier so you don't have to go through over and over and over again. Because as I say many times, this is my own personal opinion, I am not too enthralled by exploration based things in games. So the first time I go through a Tunic area, I'm like, wow, this is cool. The second time I go through with the express purpose of being like, I have to go here, that's cool as well. But the third time I go through, when I'm just like, I had to just go here just to navigate to something, or I need to explore to try and find something which I know is in this area, but I don't know where, it kind of feels like a bit more of a drag for me personally. Which luckily doesn't happen very often. It basically only happened towards the end of the game, especially when I was doing like this achievement hunting things, which is like, okay, yeah, then I kind of signed my own death warrant at that point. That's just like, you know, I've made my own bed. Of course, it's, you know, I've got to lie in it. But it does surprise me that there was nothing in the game to, like, you would not, if you got like all 12 artifacts, you wouldn't like get something which just translates a language for you or something at that point. Because I think it would have been nice after the game to be able to, like, you know, after I prove myself with 100%ing it or something, and to be able to, within the game itself, meta itself, be like, okay, here are the secrets, like, unfold to you now. Unfold is not really the right word to use that, but you can see the secrets now because you proved yourself. You found all the secrets, basically. Here are the small, like, little tidbits which you missed. But I understand why they don't as well, because I also understand that this better develops... Poncho? Cody. This helps develop a sense of community, especially because now the community can trade secrets, being like, oh, did you discover this? Whoa, I didn't even know there was a customization screen anywhere in Tunic, which was a very late discovery for me. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Things like this. I also think Tunic's probably a game, yeah... That's basically what I mean. Tunic is a game where it benefits most from the community sharing the secrets, I think, behind it. And I think maybe because I played it so late, I didn't really get to engage with that part of it, which is very much my fault. I'm not going to blame Tunic for that. That's not Tunic's fault for being like, hey, you know, I played this game not on release or anything. It's very much a thing where it's just like, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. It is a shame, you know, for that, like, this far out. Like, I don't get the same sort of interesting Tunic community-based sharing secret things which other people might have been more privy to, but maybe that's something I can still engage with. Of course, it doesn't take away from the game at all. It's just I suppose more like in the aftershock effects. Aftershocks are really right, but after ripples of playing Tunic, it sort of comes to mind. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say. Like what Tunic does. It does incredibly well. So like I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing Tunic. I don't know what other sort of like closing thoughts I have about Tunic. It's cool. It's generally just really cool. It's a very cool concept, and they executed it amazingly well. And it's a game which got better and better as I played it. I suppose like I don't think like. I mean, apart from maybe like trying to 100% the game at the end, which was just sort of like more of like epilogue, if anything, more like of indifference. The game like ramped up. I mean, it's just like with each discovery, it just basically added a new layer to it, and it felt fantastically satisfying to discover them all. It's a satisfaction of being able to execute mechanically, as well as tied together with being able to execute puzzle logically, I suppose, which is a rare find in a game, to be perfectly honest. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It does take a lot of brain power, I would say. It's definitely not a game to play when you're tired, I think. But, hey. It was a fun experience, nonetheless. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I guess I'll just round this episode off here. Like, if you have your own thoughts about Tunic, you know, feel free to leave them. I'm sure there's things I missed in Tunic, which, by absolutely enlightened me for. Like, leave a comment and I'll just be like, oh, that's pretty cool. But apart from that, I guess that kind of summarizes my thoughts on Tunic. I'm sure there's things I forgot to talk about, but whatever. You know, that can come with time. Anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope you can see each other again, but for now it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.